Spring games are in the books, and even though the 2023 draft is a ways off, it is time to take a first look at our top 10s here with Rob Rang today on Locked On NFL Draft.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Show. I'm your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. And of course, as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ryan Tracy, at Ryan Tracy NFL on Twitter. And I got my guy Rob Rang in here, at Rob Rang on Twitter as well, where you can find a lot of stuff that we're doing. Rob Rang always working on different articles and things for Fox. You can also follow me on Twitter at Eric_Crocker. But today, we're getting into some top 10s. I don't have mine just yet, but Rob has his. Ryan has his as well. So we're going to start with Rob Rang, and we're going to get into your top 5 right now. So let's list these off. First of all, you got Will Anderson, the outside linebacker / edge rusher out of Alabama. Then you got Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle out of Georgia. Georgia with another premier defensive player there. Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud are the next two players, both quarterbacks, one out of Alabama and Ohio State, respectively. Michael Mayer, junior tight end out of Notre Dame, rounds out your top 5. So, one, was it hard to figure out who was going to be your number one guy?
It was not. I mean, Will Anderson is just a different level. I mean, my goodness. I mean, just what a player. Just his statistics speak for themselves. I mean, the level of competition speaks for itself. We just had a draft class, guys, that was, absolutely loaded with edge rushers. And yet I believe if Will Anderson Jr. had been available in the 2022 NFL draft, then he would have been the Jacksonville Jaguars selection at number 1 overall. And I'm not alone in thinking that. And at the same time, I don't think that's a slam dunk. I mean that with all due respect to Walker and Aiden Hutchinson and all the other terrific edge rushers that went in this year's draft class. But I see a guy, Will Anderson, that I just think is an absolute difference maker. And so I do feel pretty strongly about him at number 1. At the same time, I think that 2 through 5 is a little bit much more up in the air. Even though I do think that all these guys are going to wind up being top 10 selections when it's all said and done.
Yeah, well, okay, so you got Anderson there, and that was a lot. Was there somebody that you were kind of surprised to not see make your top 5?
Well, not so much see my top 5 as just how excited I am about Jalen Carter. I'm a big believer in this whole idea, and I've kind of clumsily described it before as the parasite effect. And, just given what we're all living through right now, I don't know that that's the best way of saying things, but I just mean that the players that kind of feed off of each other. And when you have all of the talent that the University of Georgia had this past season, guys, I think that it's easy to kind of overrate some of the Georgia Bulldogs who have returned. And yet I still have 2 Georgia Bulldogs in my top 10. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Ryan's got even more in the top players on his board, because the Bulldogs, Kirby Smart is smart. He has got an awful lot of really good players. But when you watch Carter, 6'5", 290 pounds, just his initial quickness, his bend, his flexibility, his positional versatility. There's just not many defensive linemen who move the way that he does. So I love the quarterbacks, and I'm happy to talk about Bryce Young, happy to talk about C.J. Stroud. Again, I think that if we were just doing this for real and in terms of the way that we expect the NFL teams to draft, then of course the quarterbacks are going to move up early. But I really think that the 2023 NFL draft class is going to be similar to the 2022. And that there's going to be an awful lot of really good, impactful defensive linemen and edge rushers. And NFL teams know that is almost as important as the quarterback position.
Well, you talked about the quarterback position, and you talked about a little bit of overrating with, some of the Georgia defensive players. But do you think there's a little bit of overrating going on when it comes to the quarterback class? Because people are really high on this. And we had looked at a previous mock shortly after the draft, and they had 7 quarterbacks going in the first round. 7. And that was not including Spencer Rattler or Keaton Slovis or any of those, Bo Nix, any of those quarterbacks that were supposed to be big-time guys in this draft class. So do you think that there's any chance that any of that goes on where you're expecting like these quarterbacks to come in, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, to just be amazing, but then when you start to really evaluate them as a prospect, do you think there will be any kind of fall off? And again, I say that, but these guys have produced at a very high level at the quarterback position, both of those guys. I just rewatched the Rose Bowl with CJ Stroud. And just the wild throw after wild throw. You know what I'm saying? Big time NFL throws, throwing his guys open, leading the ball over guys' outside shoulders where they're tracking the ball in. And, you know, one of these guys he was throwing to, you'll be talking about him next. But you see the big time ability. But again, the Spencer Rattler, the Sam Howell, I don't know. I have a little bit of just deja vu about them. Not saying these guys are going to be not going to be good. I know a lot of people are going to kill me like, Crocker, are you comparing those quarterbacks to this? But I'm just saying, last year at this time, people were saying Spencer Rattler was going to be the number 1 overall pick. And he's not even projected to go first round in a year after, like, even about to play his senior year. So do you think there is a little bit of overrating going on with the quarterback position?
I think that's definitely possible. Obviously, if you think about Alabama and Bryce Young, and with all due respect, I mean, he is a phenomenal player. I think that, justly won the Heisman Trophy a year ago. At the same time, let's see what he does without Jamison Williams. And we know what Alabama does. I mean, Alabama just reloads, but still, he is losing arguably the most physically gifted wide receiver in all of college football a year ago, as well as John Mechie, as well as a starting running back in Brian Robinson, as well as the top 7 selection in the offensive tackle, Evan Neal. I mean, my goodness. I mean, there is definitely going to be some transition there. And then, of course, Ohio State loses both the receivers as well as Jamison Williams the previous year. So, yeah, I think that there is some danger there. But you said it already, Croc. I mean, NFL throw after NFL throw. And that's what I see with both Stroud as well as Bryce Young. And I know I'm going to get a little bit of heat for putting Young ahead of Stroud because Stroud is the bigger man. I mean, I think that, Bryce Young, I'm pretty sure verified came in at like 4'7". I mean, it's kind of the joke is that, he is so small and I just don't care. I mean, it was the same thing that I thought when I first started watching Russell Wilson from the berm, as they call it in Seattle, and where the media is allowed to kind of watch the training camps and things like that. And other than height, Russell Wilson had it all. And other than height, Bryce Young has it all. And so that's why he is my top-rated quarterback. It's just because the level of competition that he's faced and the fact that he just makes those NFL throw after NFL throw and does it with such touch, with such poise, with such pinpoint accuracy. That's why I do have him, Bryce Young from Alabama, as number 1 quarterback in the 2023 draft.
Well, there is a quarterback that you not only didn't have in your top 5, but you have him in your top 10 as well. We're going to get to him. But first, I know, Ryan, you had something that you wanted to close with.
I just wanted to say thank you because you're the only other person besides me that has Bryce Young ahead of Stroud. And I appreciate that because I agree with you. I think the transition that he made when his main receivers went down to injury, I thought that was what proved it to me, that he can make the transitions that he's going to have to make. And nothing against Stroud, but his best receiver last season is still on this roster, is going to play next year. We'll talk about him coming up.
All right. Can't wait to talk about him and some of this next crop of 5 guys for our guy, Rob. But first, I definitely want to talk to you a little bit about Built Bar and how they have granola bars now. So listen, I'm excited about this because as someone who loves eating granola bars, but I want something that's very healthy. Again, you see our guy, Rob, he just put up the Built Bar Puffs with the cake, birthday cake flavor. That has been my favorite one so far, but sometimes you want to mix it up a little bit. All right. I know the birthday cake is covered with all this delicious chocolate and only 9 grams of sugar for something that tastes so good. But these granola bars, I am very interested in these. All right. Built granola bars come and are available in 3 different flavors: chocolate peanut butter, chocolate coconut, and white chocolate berry. I can't wait to try that white chocolate berry. All right. And actually, I want to try all 3. You can get a mixed box at built.com right now. These are so different from the bars and the puffs. Built granola bars are loaded with granola. It's the perfect combination of crunch and chewiness. But Just like bars and puffs, these babies are packed with protein and covered with, wait for it, 100% real chocolate. How they do it, I have no idea. All right, with 150 calories, 15 grams of protein in a granola bar. Come on, let's go. And best part about it, y'all, for somebody that's trying to watch their figure like me, I'm trying to get my summer body right. It's been a struggle. But these things, this is what I need right here. 4 grams of sugar in this granola built bar. All right. And crack the code with the granola bars. I don't know how they do it. Again, I'm really amazed by this. They are made with collagen protein, which makes it easier for your body to absorb it and is more efficient, and it provides a ton of health benefits. So if you are waiting for a healthy and delicious granola bar to hit the market, this is your time. Head to build.com right now and get the granola bars. Again, they have 3 flavors: chocolate peanut butter, chocolate coconut, and white chocolate berry. Don't miss out on these. You got to get yours today, because I'm telling you, they probably will run out extremely fast. Go to build.com right now and get the granola bars. That's it. That's where I'm heading after this right now. I'm reading it right now. I wasn't aware of this. I'm extremely excited. I'm heading over there as soon as, babe, I might have my wife order them right now. All right. So go to build.com right now. Use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at build.com. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Locked On NFL Draft right here, talking about all things from top 5, top 10 players in this draft class to Built Bar, granola bars. All right, all those good things. But there are plenty more shows on the Locked On Network that have plenty of good things to bring. You got the NBA playoffs going on right now. You want those covered? Check out our host over at Locked On NBA. Or you got Locked On NFL with Peacock and Williamson. Tons of great shows on this network. Make sure you tune in to all of those. All right, so we got to get to your next 5, right? Your 6 through 10 guys. And there is a guy that I noticed was not on this list. So I'm going to read off the guys. I want to talk about a guy that's missing, and then we'll get into your guys here. All right, so at 6, you got receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba, all right, receiver out of Ohio State. Then you got Nolan Smith, outside linebacker out of Georgia, another Georgia guy there. Jordan Addison, receiver at Southern California. We weren't able to say that a week ago, but we can say that now. You got Brian Brazee, defensive tackle out of Clemson, and Noah Sewell, interior linebacker out of Oregon. But there's this guy that's missing. And I just want to kind of get your thoughts. If you have initial thoughts on him, again, we're very, 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 very early in this process, and there are a lot of guys that we have not seen yet. But Will Levis, quarterback out of Kentucky. Have you seen anything from him yet, Rob? And if you have, why is he a guy that's not in your top 10?
I absolutely love the physical tools. At the same time, the same things that we talked about previously with the Alabama quarterback, Bryce Young, as well as Ohio State quarterback, C.J. Stroud. What Levis is going to be missing up front and along the offensive line, and then in the backfield at wide receiver position is with Wando Robinson, both leaving, as well as, again, all of the transition they have along the offensive line, where you're going to have multiple starters who they have to replace. And so that is a concern for me. I think that the Kentucky program is one of the best in all of college football. What Stoops has been able to do there is absolutely phenomenal. But at the same time, I just don't know if they have the depth to be able to just reload the way that I expect Alabama and Ohio State to be able to do. And that doesn't mean that Levis can't be a stud quarterback. I think that he absolutely can be that. And again, the physical traits are exciting. But at the same time, he is just outside the top 10 for me at this point. I only have a little bit of I only have the 2 quarterbacks in my top 10. I do think that ultimately they're going to wind up being a lot of quarterbacks. I'll just say it right now. I think Tanner McKee from Stanford is the quarterback who might be in that mix as well, along with Levis and several other quarterbacks who I think are going to be in that first round mix. But to me, there is a pretty steep drop off once you get past Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud at the top.
And that's interesting for a class that's supposed to be so strong at the quarterback position, right? Like, that's what people are saying. Oh, no, don't draft a quarterback in 2022. Wait to 23 because it's such a strong quarterback class. But does it end after the first 2 guys? And then, obviously there's a lot of time left, and we'll see if some other guys are able to kind of, boost their stock throughout this process. I'm sure we'll see it. Someone who we're not even aware of that's going to climb the charts there. But it just is interesting that a lot of people are saying, wait for that next class. And you're saying, man, right now, after those top 2 guys, there is a big drop off. Ryan, I know you had something there.
Yeah, I don't think the drop off's going to be like it was this year. One guy in the first round, then hey, we're going to wait till the third.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a drop off. I actually have Nevis as QB3. I had him in my top 10 only because I'm banking on what you said on that program being solid enough. And I do like one thing. The portal has changed college football forever, in my opinion. And I think that was evident in what we were talking about with Young, with Burton coming in, Tyler Harrell coming in from Louisville. But also, the big thing for me is Javon Baker is leaving Alabama to go to Kentucky. And so I think that gives at least an option for optimism there. So I left him in there this is basically just off of what I watched in watching prospects for this season. So I might have us a little bit artificially inflated. But if that particular relationship to Baker works out, he could see himself rise himself back up into the top half of the first round in the eyes of other people. So I'm crossing my fingers for him.
Let's talk about Rob's the actual 5 guys he has to round out it. He has here to round out his top 10, but 2 receivers in the top 10, Smith-Njigba. All right, what are you seeing from him? Because this is a guy who played on the team. He was kind of the third option, but we saw how terrific he was, especially in that Rose Bowl. Now I don't know if it was Utah's corners that just weren't doing very well against him, or if he's just that good. I did see, I wanted to see a little bit of breakaway speed, but maybe it's because he had, 200 yards in like the first half. He's like, Croc, my legs are tired. I can't run away from guys right now. I'm just going too crazy in this game. We saw the ball tracking skills, over the shoulder, big play ability, but 2 guys. And can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the differences you see between Smith-Njigba and Addison for you, and not to have them, too far apart. We're talking about one spot in between those 2 guys, but what are you seeing from them?
Well, I think with Smith-Njigba, you see a guy who is just a little bit bigger, a little bit more physical. He is a guy that played obviously a lot of slot at Ohio State. And I think that's one of the positions in which he can excel, but he just goes up and gets the football, has terrific body control, the size, to be able to kind of, push defenders away and still be able to create yardage after the catch. You kind of referenced the Rose Bowl there. I mean, just a terrific player who I think is, his stock is only going to rise this upcoming season. That's why I have him as a top receiver. Whereas Jordan Addison, of course, and he's going to be going to USC, and it's going to be interesting to see if he has nearly the success that he had a year ago when he was the Thorpe Award winner as the nation's best wide receiver. And of course, had the only first-round quarterback a year ago, and Kenny Pickett throwing him the football. And there was a lot of plays that were kind of created by scheme by Addison. But I think that when you're going to compare Addison to Smith-Njigba, to me, Addison is a little bit more like another former Buckeye receiver in Chris Olave. I just see that similar type of just a flexible athlete, his speed, his agility, his ability to make people miss, just how smooth that he is as a route runner. To me, that is actually the more appropriate comparison rather than Smith-Njigba being a bigger, more physical player.
Smooth versus sudden. I like that. And it's funny, I didn't even put Addison in there when I made my top 16 because I didn't know who he's going to be playing with. Now I think that changes things, but I absolutely agree with you. And I like the way that you put this list together. Getting into that top 10 is key now, but it's maintaining your performance to stay there that I'm really going to be interested in.
Yeah, another guy you have here who I like, this is a guy who definitely pops anytime you cut on the film at Oregon, and that is Noah Sewell. All right, interior offensive lineman. Obviously, brother Penei Sewell, I'm assuming there. And there's another one at Utah, right? Or that went to the NFL this past season.
Yeah,
right?
Nephew just came out.
Yeah. So, man, big-time bloodlines there. But Noah Sewell, he's a guy who's been playing a ton of games since the moment he showed up at Oregon. So why are some reasons why you have him as a top 10 prospect in this class?
Well, just for one, I think that off-ball linebackers who can run and hit are always going to be critical in today's NFL. I think that we saw it the last couple of seasons. That is a position that the teams are still very much willing to invest early selections if the player is special. And I think that Sewell is that. One of the many different hats I've been allowed to wear over, just kind of, a charmed life so far is that I've been able to work with the Morris Trophy. And what that does is in the Pac-12, it's the offensive lineman vote for the best defensive lineman in the conference, the defensive lineman vote for the best offensive lineman in the conference. And I've had an opportunity to meet a lot of the Pac-12 coaches, head coaches, offensive coordinators, offensive line coaches, defensive coordinators, defensive line coaches. And I had a chance to have a conversation a couple of years ago, guys, with Mario Cristobal, then the coach at the University of Oregon, now at University of Miami. And we were honoring Penei Sewell, of course, wound up going to the Detroit Lions in the top 5 selection a couple of years ago. And I think it's going to wind up being an all-pro when it's all said and done for the Lions. And I said, oh my goodness, what an incredible player you have in this Penei Sewell. And he looked at me and just said, where do you see his younger brother play linebacker? And that just, when a head coach says that, and this is Mario Cristobal, and this is a former offensive line coach himself, that's almost his MO to kind of hype up his offensive linemen. And yet he is instantly switching over to talking about Noah Sewell. And I think that when you watch him on tape, this is a guy who just, steals opportunities from some of his teammates. Just an absolute playmaker. And so it probably at number 10, maybe that is a little early. I'm willing to take that because I just think that this kid is an unbelievable football player. And if he played at Alabama, if he played at LSU, if he played at Ohio State, I think that a lot more people will be talking about him as a top 10 pick. So sure, maybe I have him a little bit higher, but I think when it's all said and done, Noah Sewell is going to wind up being a first-round pick. And you don't see that many first-round picks at the off-ball linebacker position.
Yeah, we're talking about a guy who had 8.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks as well from that linebacker position. So a guy that, really, when you watch him, he plays like his hair is on fire. He's flying around the field all over, making tackles, big hits. A couple times I felt like he was knocking himself out of the game, all right? So this is a guy who, like you said, top 10 might be a little rich, but you just are that high on him as a prospect. You know what? I can't wait to get to Ryan's top 10 now. He's been patiently waiting for the opportunity to talk about his. He snuck in one guy. All right. We'll see what other guys he has in his top 10 coming up next. All right, Ryan, let's talk about your top 10 that you have. All right. And I'll list them off real quick. And there's some similarities here between your list and Rob Rank's. But you start with Will Anderson, edge rusher out of Alabama. You got Bryce Young, quarterback. CJ Stroud. You got Bryce Young over CJ Stroud there. Jackson Smith-Njigba and Jalen Carter. So, so far, you guys all, at least in your top 5, Rob also has these guys in his top 10 as well. All right.
He's a smart man.
Right. Just a little, right? He's been doing this for a little bit now. Will Levis. So that's the difference there. Rob, he didn't have Will Levis. Then you have Smith, the edge rusher out of Georgia. You got Elias Ricks. That's another new guy. Ringo.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I need to maximize my screen there. And then you got another receiver here, Butte, but you don't have the speedster. You don't have Addison. So you got the LSU receiver there, Keyshawn Butte. So talk to us a little about kind of your top 5. All right, that's cool. But your next guy, because that's so much different than Rob's. And starting with Will Levis, you talked about some of the things you liked with him, so we don't have to touch on him. But Elias Ricks, cornerback, you have him listed here at LSU. He's no longer there. He transferred to Alabama. He transferred to Alabama. So talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing from Elias Ricks, who actually has the nickname Pick Six Ricks.
I know it. And he's got the length. He's got the compatibility to fit into that particular scheme. The match man stuff that he's going to run in Alabama, I really like that for him in particular. When I saw him on film, I didn't say he was going to go to Alabama, but I was like, if they don't turn it around at LSU, he's got to go somewhere, right? So it couldn't have been a better fit. But yes, I made this list before the portal got going. Addison isn't on it because I didn't know where he was going to be. Ricks is listed at LSU. That's all right. The other LSU player that's on here is Booty. And that's, again, because Addison wasn't available for me to, really have a play on.
Hey, no, it's okay if you don't have Addison. You can go against the grain here. You're not being judged.
Oh, yeah, 6th-round pick. That's what he is.
Yeah.
But no, I wanted to get Ringo in there because I thought he was up and down, but I thought his play in the college football playoff really stood out to me as a guy that, as a young player, got more mature pretty quickly there. And so I'm projecting bigger things for him. That may be a reach. That's all right. And really the whole thing, I too have 3 Georgia players in the top 10 and playing off of each other, but it's not quite like stacked up next to each other. So I do think there's more variability for those guys this season because it isn't like, where's an offense going to turn to? because you got Nolan on the outside, you got Jalen on the inside, Ringo's in the back playing on them drums. Sorry, this is the wrong show for a music review, but you have all that. I still think there's gaps in that defense too. So I didn't see these coming last year, these three guys, right? So who's going to step up for Georgia's defense and round it out this year so that these stars can shine more? I'm betting on something happening, and that's why they're in the top 10. So there we have it.
Yeah, and I think that, you and I both had Nolan Smith on our list. And when you watch on tape, the same thing again with Carter at the defensive tackle. Obviously Georgia was loaded a year ago, and so are they going to be able to step up? And then with Ringo, he already did step up. Of course, he helped them win the national championship game. With that incredible interception, or that just how timely that interception was, and just a really good football player. And so, yeah, I can't disagree with your list here. The cornerbacks, to me, the fact that you are having such a transition in that Georgia defense, that's why I didn't put Ringo in the top 10, but I still think that he has a first round caliber kind of a player. And then as you talked about before, with Hicks making that switch from LSU to Bama, I think that's an exciting transition for him as well. So I think that you may wind up looking very, very wise, my friend, by having both those corners in the top 10, because they may very well wind up there.
So Ryan gave us a list of 16 guys. So he has his top 16 here. And there's one that's right outside of his top 10. I want to hear about this. We talked about this quarterback class, and maybe can there be a run on quarterbacks? You have 4 quarterbacks in your top 16, but the guy slightly outside of your top 10, Tyler Van Dyke, Miami quarterback. What are you seeing from him? Because I'm seeing his name kind of circulating a little bit now, where guys are getting a little excited about what they're seeing from their quarterback.
I see a lot of upside. I see a lot of tools that are in the infant stage. He needs more weapons. I don't see much in the portal here, and I've been trying to review that for the last week to see who's moving around. But if someone can step out and become a target that can separate themselves for defensive coordinators to concentrate on, I think he's got the rest of the tools to move the ball around and kind of run the show there in a way that can elevate him to this point. Has he gotten there quite yet? No. I actually debated between him at 11 and Tyler McGee at 16. I almost flip-flopped him. So this is obviously very early, but I do think there's the upside there. Again, depending on the way the offense fills out, I like what he brings to the table.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in there real quick again. I think, again, with Cristobal going to Miami, the Hurricanes' offensive line is going to be more stout than it's been in an awful long time. And that's one of the things I do like for Van Dyke is if you have that pressure, it's a lot easier to find a couple of guys who can run in South Florida than it is to find necessarily offensive linemen that are going to be able to kind of plug and play kind of guys. But Cristobal will improve that, and they'll have the speed on the outside to take advantage of Van Dyke's big arm. So another one. I think that I don't want to come off as being just bullish on the top 2 quarterbacks and not liking any of the rest of them. I just think that this is a draft class at quarterback that has an awful lot of talent. I just think that the top 2 guys are pretty easy to see, and then it's a little bit of a mix, the rest of the way. But I do think that you're going to see 4, 5, 6 quarterbacks who are very likely to wind up going in the first round.
I'm a little jealous here, man. I got to come up with my top 10 guys now. Maybe we'll do that show for Monday with Ryan and I, where I kind of dive deep into these guys over this weekend, man. But, man, gentlemen, I appreciate you guys coming on, dropping some knowledge on some of these prospects that a lot of people should know about heading into this next 2023 class. We definitely want to thank all of you for making us your first listen of the day. And, of course, for your second, third, and fourth listens of the day. You got Locked On Chiefs, you got Locked On Seahawks, and you have Locked On 49ers. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On NFL Draft. We will see y'all tomorrow. Peace.